Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we have our Austin-Healey and it is overheating, but only when it's sitting in traffic. On the move it seems to be fine. And I've got a theory. Recently I've changed the thermostat. I put in a standard one, which may have been a mistake. So let me show you the original and give you an idea of what I think might be happening here. Sorry, not the original, an original style. Austin-Healey's originally had this, what they call a bellows style thermostat. And you can see it looks a lot different than what you're used to from an auto parts store. But this brass sleeve, as things heat up, moves. And what happens is the cooling system in the Austin-Healey will allow something like 25% of the coolant to recirculate through the engine. And this blanking sleeve moves into place to seal that off so that it doesn't. And so my theory is that it's overheating sitting in traffic because the cooling system in a Healey is marginal to begin with. And without this blanking sleeve in place, what's probably happening is it's allowing a quarter of the coolant to not go through the radiator. So as you might imagine, that means only 75% of the fluid is going through, and then that's creating potential cooling issues. So I'm going to change this. At the same time, I've got a Texas cooler fan. I'm going to install that because I drive my Austin-Healey and I care a lot more about whether or not it works than I do about what's original. So I like enjoying the character of the car, but there are some modifications that I just consider sensible things to do. So we're going to take care of that, tackle that today. That's this week's project, and let's get started. All right. First things first, just to note, we did drain out some of the coolant underneath the car. That's pretty easy. There's just a tap on the bottom of the radiator. You can do that. Technically, you can also just let it drain out when you take the thermostat housing off, but then that makes quite a bit more of a mess. I have had this off kind of recently, so you may have to unstick it a bit more than that. Usually just grab on the hose and wiggle it till it comes loose. If you need to, use a tool like this to prevent damaging the radiator hose. Just kind of get in, scale it around just to break the seal, and then there we go. Get that up and out of the way. You want to make sure to clean your old gasket off. If you are going to use a razor blade, do it perpendicularly, kind of like this, just to get the old remnants of gasket off. You don't want to go at too sharp of an angle, because then what you're going to do is you're going to be cutting the metal more than you want. Remember, razor blades are steel, so you can scratch things. Okay, there's the thermostat. Looks like we picked our coolant level pretty nicely. And actually that looks pretty good. You want to make sure you've got a nice clean surface. Otherwise, when you replace the gasket, it's not gonna seat properly. Okay, here we have the bellows type thermostat, and as I was explaining before, this sleeve, you probably can't see it, but right around in here there's a hole in the side, there's a hole in the block that, while this sleeve is out of the way, will allow coolant to flow through the engine instead of the radiator. So you get roughly at any given time, even with the thermostat open, with the old thermostat open, you would get about 25% of the coolant circulating through the engine rather than through the radiator. It's not what you want. So when this opens up, it also blanks that off so that you're forcing all of the coolant to go through the radiator, so you get better cooling. So we're going to put that in. There's a couple of gaskets. Okay. I like to use a gasket sealant. Let's apply there, and then we'll do the same. I'm just going to apply a little bit of sealant on the housing on this side. Of course, I'm running low on gasket sealant. Okay, just make sure you don't like glob it on, especially if you're using silicone gasket sealer. That's just going to end in you being sad. Okay. Always get the bolts started by hand. Because the last thing you want to do is cross thread something going into your cylinder head. Okay, let's see if there's a torque spec on this. I don't see one specifically, but that's okay. We're just going to go with around 35 foot-pounds. Okay. It's less about having the correct torque and more about just making sure that it's even. And inspect just to make sure nothing looks out of the ordinary. Make sure you tighten your hose clamp back down. And you're good to go. By the way, I'm aware that these are not the original style hose clamps. I don't care. They do a much better job, and this car is for driving, not for showing. I guess I could show it, but where's the fun in that? Right, I'm gonna make a quick trip to the store, get some more coolant. I'm gonna fill this up. But in the meantime, I almost wonder, maybe we can try and do the fan as well. If I can get that out of there, or would it be easier to take the radiator out? Let's see if we can get a wrench in. If we can't, then we can't. Not easily. That's going to be just a project for another day, I think. All right. Tip to any of you guys that are doing your own videos, don't have a ticking clock. It chimes every hour and you have to keep refilming parts of your video. Anyway, I'm going to take a quick trip to the parts store. I'm going to get some coolant. I'm going to top this off. We're going to go for a drive and see if all is well. The other issue potentially, so there's a few reasons that these could be overheating. I have a feeling that the thermostat being technically incorrect was one. You can use a modern thermostat. They make blanking plates that you can buy for like 10 bucks. They're really not expensive, that you can put, and then it'll block off that extra passage so that your coolant is forced to go through the radiator. That's one reason why it could be overheating. They do make a fan. The Texas cooler fan is, from what I understand, very good. It's got a great reputation anyway. And one of the issues that you'll run into with the original style is that it's metal and it's kind of riveted together, and those rivets can break, and potentially you can have one of the fan blades go flying if it's in bad shape. So you don't want that. My fan is okay, so I think I'm going to leave it for now, but I have the Texas cooler fan. I'll put that in someday in the future, probably about the time of my next coolant change, just because I've only drained it down to about here. Let's see. So that's a reason. Your radiator might not be radiating, I guess. You could try flushing it out. You can get new radiators. They're expensive for Healey, but usually that's not the problem. Just try flushing it out. Get some clean fluid going through there and just watch it draining out. When it turns clear, you're good to go. And another thing that's a potential issue is actually your ignition timing. So if the engine's not timed properly, you could be getting a lot of heat going into the exhaust, which doesn't sound like a problem, but that's heating up the exhaust valves. That is going, and that's surrounded by coolant, so that is going to start heating up things really quickly. And if you're idling that way, especially without any airflow, it's going to cause some heating issues. So make sure that your timing is correct. You want to check that with a timing light. On these, you need an advanced timing light. I guess you don't need it. You can measure it. But an advanced timing light helps. You can dial it in. Anyway, that's a different video, but make sure your timing's correct. Make sure the carburetors are set correctly. Always do the timing first. And that's about it. So that ought to take care of it. Hopefully this, I'm actually going to tighten this up. Hopefully this fixes the problem. I'd like this to be just pushed on a little further. There. Oh, one other really important thing is your radiator cap. So this is the original one, and you can see right here it's marked 7 psi. 7 psi is the maximum that you can have if you've got the original style thermostat. Modern thermostat, you can run a little bit more pressure. For those of you that don't know, the pressure is different. If you are high up in the mountains, your pressure is a little bit less. Water's actually going to boil a little bit quicker. Higher pressure, if you are increasing the pressure, like in a closed system with a radiator cap that's got a spring on it, it's going to boil at a higher and higher temperature. So that's actually going to be helpful to your engine, because you don't want the water to boil when you're just close to the boiling point. But you need the system to be sealed, and this thermostat that's under that cap is only going to work up to about 7 pounds. Otherwise, the pressure is going to be too much. It's going to force it the opposite direction, and again, you're going to have cooling problems. So higher pressure isn't a bad thing. And just the higher you go, you need your system to be able to be capable of preventing leaks. So anyway, I'm going to leave this off so I can remember that I need to put coolant in it, and we're good for today. So guys, that's it for today. We should be able to have this running pretty soon, and we'll go for a drive. One of these days I'll get around to actually doing a driving video on some of these cars so you can kind of ride along with me. But anyway, if you've got questions, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, like, subscribe, all of that fun stuff, and happy motoring.